Welcome to Recliner Sports post-game live. We are talking about the Canadiens and Senators tonight. Senators take out a 4-3 win against the Montreal Canadiens. Scoring opened by Jake Evans, unassisted goal in the first period. Bit of a panic play from Yakimchuk, behind the net. A little bit of forecheck from Montreal. He gets left alone behind the net. He kind of tries to clear the zone. Evans picks it up, heads in, goes in, scores the goal. Goal number 2, Montreal goes up 2-0. Goal by Kirby Dach, assisted by Yoel Armia and Luke Tuck. Pretty basic goal. He goes to the front of the net, tries to pass it in front, goes in off a Ottawa Senators defender. Then the Senators go on a 5-minute power play and score 3 goals in a row. Michael Amadio from why can't I say that guy's name? From Yakimchuk and Gaudette. Then Gaudette scores from Shabbat, and then Greg scores from Pinto and Batherson. The score is then 3-2 going into the third. Yakimchuk scores the 4th goal, also on the power play for Ottawa from Batherson and Norris. And then the scoring is closed by Oliver Kapanen from Joshua Roy. Even strength to end the game. Final score 4-3. My 3 stars are Gaudette, Dach, and Yakimchuk, with an honorable mention to Jaden Struble. I thought had a really, really, really good game. Probably did as much as anybody to solidify his cause on Montreal to have a position with the team when the season starts. I thought he was really, really good. But again, I think people are alluding to it in the comments already. The story of the game was the 2 hits. The first hit by Ridley Gregg on Kirby Dach. He was originally given a 5-minute major. Then upon review, it was reduced down to a 2-minute minor. I'm not going to debate the hit with everybody. I'm not going to do that. It's just not worth it. We've just shown how asinine that can be the last couple days. It's just not worth it. At the end of the day, it was probably an unnecessary hit, and especially in a preseason game. It wasn't very smart. It was blindside. It was whatever. But I'm not going to get into the details of whether he hit his head. I'm not going to go through it frame by frame, like I'm sure everyone else is going to do over the next few days. So then this next hit was of course the Jack-Eye hit in the second period. Also a very stupid hit. The players coming across the middle, Stützle, and Jack-Eye comes across to hit him and puts his elbow up and either catches him in the chin or catches him in the arm, which hits him in the chin. Again, it doesn't really matter. I suspect that Jack-Eye will get a suspension. I don't know how long it will be. I'm not going to get into that debate either, just because it's not really worth having any conversation about it, because, we're obviously Ottawa fans and Montreal fans aren't going to agree on it. Whether or not Greg deserves a suspension or not, I don't know. I doubt that he'll get one, given that they reduced his penalty from a 5-minute to a 2-minute. So I don't really expect that he'll get any supplemental discipline. Again, I don't know. The issue I would have about the Jack-Eye hit, if anything, again, and it's a small thing, is why did he get a 2-minute for roughing, right? After the hit, Tkachuk jumped him, as he should. And I mean, certainly Jack-Eye is more than capable of fighting back, would have been more than capable to drop his gloves and have a fight with Brady Tkachuk at that point. But I think he realized that the hit was bad and that he didn't want to exacerbate the penalties for his team, and tried to see if he might be able to draw Tkachuk into a penalty that might even things up. Tkachuk didn't really throw a lot of punches either, so I don't think he would have deserved anything more than a minor. I just don't understand what Jack-Eye did to deserve that minor. In any event, I think he certainly deserved the 5-minute major. It was warranted. It was a bad hit. I want to talk about Jack-Eye a little bit later on my 3 thoughts for the game, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But as I said, as a result of the penalty, Ottawa goes on a 5-minute power play and they score three of their 4 goals on that 5-minute power play, and then they scored their 4th goal, the game-winning goal, on a subsequent power play. My three stars I said were Adam Gaudette, Kirby Dach, and Carter Yakimchuk. Gaudette 2 points on the game, Yakimchuk 2 points on the game. I thought they both looked really, really good. I think they both look like they belong in the NHL. Gaudette, Yakimchuk maybe a little bit more seasoning. I think he probably will go back to the minors, but he certainly looks like he belongs, especially on the offensive side of the game. Again, it's hard to judge Ottawa's game tonight because so much of it took place on the power play. It was like, Yakimchuk looked good, and in large part because he had a big role to play on the power play, and his offensive game obviously looks very good in that situation, and so he came off really, really, really good tonight, as did Gaudette. Dach, I thought Dach had a really good game. I thought he was playing really well before the Ridley Gregg hit. He went off, presumably for concussion protocol after the hit. Came back in the second period, looked really, really good again, scored that goal. And then at the end of the game, of course, Ridley Gregg, for whatever reason, didn't seem to, again, third period, preseason game, the game's basically over. The two guys go to the corner first time, and, Ridley Gregg grabs a hold of him and starts holding on to him. And, anyways, Dach ends up giving a little slash in the skates. He goes down. Dach gets a penalty, comes out of the box. Same thing, they go in the corner again. Ridley Gregg's got to have his glove up in his face and get him going again. And at this point, Dach had had enough. And, he, took care of business. And again, I'm not again here to, pick sides or whatever on the fight, but he did what he needed to do finally, right? Like he held Ridley Gregg, he didn't let him get away, and he said, listen, man, we're going to go at this, let's go at this. And they did it, and, that was the end of it. So that's why I have Dach as my as my second star of the game. The first thing I want to talk about, my three thoughts on the game. The first thing I want to talk about is special teams. So from a Montreal perspective, obviously, special teams is always an issue for Montreal, right? The Canadiens are now, I believe, 0 for 25 or something like that in the preseason. Which wouldn't necessarily be a huge deal. It's the preseason, and we're not really, we're not putting too much stock into the things that happen in preseason games. It's not the end of the world. However, given Montreal's history with special teams, especially the power play, it's concerning. And tonight, again, it's maybe not that big a deal tonight because they didn't have the guys who typically are on their power play. They didn't have Hudson. They didn't have Matheson. They didn't have, the Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky line. They, of course, don't have Laine right now. So, all of those things, lead to, you wouldn't expect the power play to be that great tonight, nor would you put a lot of weight on, how the power play performs. But I think the power play was definitely a story tonight, not just from the Montreal perspective, but also because of the entire, the situation. Ottawa's power play 4 for 8 tonight. All 4 of their goals scored on the power play. So discipline's an issue. You're taking 8 minutes in penalties. You're taking 8 penalties, 16 minutes in penalty. And Ottawa is capitalizing on that. So your penalty kill doesn't look great tonight, and Ottawa certainly taking advantage of their chances on the power play, in particular on the 5-minute power play when Arbor Jackeye went off for the hit on Tim Stützle. Ottawa had 16 shots in total for the entire game. 9 of those came on the power play. So outside of the power play, Ottawa's offense wasn't all that great. It didn't really, they weren't very threatening for most of the game, other than when they were on the power play. Montreal would have been 3-0 5-on-5 tonight. So again, it's kind of, it's a story to tell when you want to talk about there's a story to tell with respect to the special teams in tonight's game. The second thing I want to talk about before I get to the main thing, I think we'll take up a lot of our conversation, and then we'll go into a discussion about it afterwards. But the second thing I want to talk about is the replacements for Laine, right? Today we learned that Laine will be out for 2 to 3 months. which is actually pretty good news considering what his injury looked like. It looked like might have been quite a bit worse. But apparently surgery is not required. There is not a fully torn ligament. It's being described as a sprain. So it's looking like he could be back as early as January. Very good news. Again, I'm going to close the door on the whole line of conversation. The discussion about whether the hit was clean or dirty has gone back and forth on both sides for long enough now. Realistically, it doesn't really matter whether the injury was caused by a dirty hit or not. Line is hurt. We know how long he'll be out for now. It doesn't really matter. Cedric Paré, a suspension to him isn't going to be any real significance. So again, you guys, if you want, in other places, can continue to debate it. But if you're a Toronto fan who's still arguing that the hit was clean, then good for you. And if you're a Montreal fan that's still worried about it, well, good for you. It just, at this point, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's over. It happened, and there's nothing that's gonna change it at this point. So why don't we all just move on from it? Additionally, we heard today that Reinbacher has had surgery on his left knee. He will be out for 5 to 6 months, which means that he's almost certainly going to miss the entire season. That's too bad. Good young player. Now having issues with his knees, both of his knees, over a period of a little over a year. He had a far more minor knee injury last season while playing in Switzerland. And so that's concerning, I guess. But he's a young kid. He's still only 19, maybe 20. I think he's 19. So again, I would expect him to make a full recovery. But again, it just delays his progress to the NHL by another year, right? Like this year, you would have hoped that he would be able to go to the American League and play down there and learn how to play North American style hockey and develop his game so that he can make his way up to the NHL someday and live up to the potential he has, and show why the Montreal Canadiens drafted him 5th overall year before last. And the last thing I want to talk about, and I think this will probably lead to some discussion, because of the situation in tonight's game with Arbor Jackeye. The way I wrote it down in my notes is how to be an enforcer in 2024, right? And I think it's something that Arbor Jackeye needs to learn. And he went down to the minors last year, and I think that was part of what they were trying to teach him when he went down to Laval last year, was how to be an enforcer in today's NHL. It's not the same as it was 25 years ago or even 20 years ago or whatever. It's not a matter of being out there and just, fighting 2 or 3 times a night and, you go out there and you fight their biggest, toughest guy. It's not like that anymore. I think in order to be an enforcer and to be effective as an enforcer, you need to be able to control your emotions, as somebody has pointed out in the comments. You need to be there for your teammates. You need to learn how to defend them in a way that you're not also going to hurt them, right? Last game, jumping on Cedric Paré's back and beating him up with your gloves on the back of the head didn't help your team, right? You put them on a 7-minute penalty kill, which, didn't really affect the game to any great degree, but it certainly didn't help. I also felt like both tonight and last night, the rough play kind of took the air out of the Montreal Canadiens, right? Like I think in the game against Toronto, when Jackeye retaliated against Paré and got the 7-minute penalty, the Canadiens, obviously the injuries to Reinbacher and Laine affected them as well, and kind of affected them emotionally, but it kind of took the air out of the team, right? They just didn't look like they were interested in playing after that. And I think I got a similar feeling tonight. Not so much that the rough stuff took the air out of the Montreal Canadiens, but it kind of, yes, that's how you pronounce his name, Lucas. And so not so much that it took the air out of the team, but more so that they kind of shifted their game away from playing hockey to sort of being involved in that sort of style of game that Ottawa, I guess, was more interested in playing. Right, Ottawa was kind of more interested in playing that physical game, and just again, I think Jake Evans summed it up really well after the first period when he was interviewed. They asked him about the hit, and he's like, "Listen, man, it's like, whether you think it's clean or not, it's just an unnecessary stupid hit in a preseason game, and it kind of changed the direction that the game was going in. And it appeared, at least for a period of time anyway, that the Canadiens sort of abandoned their game plan because of it. So from Jack Guy's perspective, how to be an enforcer in 2024, I think you have to, you can't retaliate the way that he did against Toronto, and you can't retaliate the way he did tonight against Ottawa. You have to realize that, fighting isn't the main job of the enforcer in today's hockey. You're going to fight and you're going to get your opportunities to fight, but you're a good defenseman, right? So you don't want to spend that much time in the penalty box. You don't want to put your team down a man if you don't have to. So with a guy like Jack Guy, to me, one of his greatest assets is his physical strength, and it's about, it's not just about, fighting. It's also about hitting. It's about, throw a big hit, a clean hit, right? Take it out on guys along the boards, win your battles, be physical, make them understand that, okay, if you want to be tough and rough, we're here for it and we can handle that, right? Go after some of, not go after dirty wise, but, you finish your hits against their other players. If they don't want to fight you, then make them, if they don't want you to fight them, make them fight you, right? Make them come to you, right? If you're the biggest, baddest man on the block, and nobody wants to fight you, force them to come and see you, right? And that's all about like being, the biggest, strongest guy out there. And it's not about, going out picking fights. It's not about going out there and clipping a guy coming across the middle. It's about, it's about being big and physical and strong, along the boards and in every aspect of the game. So and I think Jack Guy has the tools to do that, and I think he understands that. And I think what it really comes down is being able to control your emotions and control the way that you respond to what other people do, right? Like you can't be getting into fights because you're mad and you're angry. You got to get into fights because it makes sense strategically for the team to do that at a specific time, right? Change the momentum. Those kinds of things, right? So it's not just about, I got to fight this guy because I'm pissed off and I want to kill him. It's about, okay, well, how will me fighting this guy impact the game, hopefully in a positive way for my team. So that's kind of, the thoughts I had on the game. As far as Montreal is concerned, like I said, I thought Doc was great. He looks like he is hopefully, back in the form that he would have been in last year if he hadn't gotten hurt. What else? Again, Jaden Struble, fantastic game. I thought he was head and shoulders above both Jack Guy and Mailloux tonight. Certainly ahead of Engstrom as well. I thought he had a really, really good game. Jake Evans looked good. There were a few other guys. I thought that Oliver Kapanen certainly showed that he is ready for the NHL. Whether that happens or not, I think if it doesn't happen, it won't be because he wasn't good enough. It'll be because of contract situations with other players. But again, I think once again he showed that he is definitely able to play at this level, and to be a good player at this level, not just be on the borderline, but he's capable of being a contributor and an impact player at this level. And I think, again, for me, I would see him being potentially, a bottom six forward for the Montreal Canadiens for a long time. And he's certainly, proving that he's capable of doing that. So that's about it for me. That's a bit, all for my jibber jabber. Again, Montreal Canadiens go down 4-3 to the Ottawa Senators. This is the fifth preseason game of the season. We have one more left. Montreal has one more preseason game left before the regular season gets started next week. So that's just